Imagine the scene. You're in a supermarket aisle. The lights are bright. People are rushing past. You look down at your shopping cart, and suddenly, an icy terror runs up your spine. You don't know why you're there. You look at your own hands, and they seem like a stranger's. Who are you? For a terrifying moment, your mind is a blank slate. This isn't a scene from a movie. This is what happened to Helena, a 69-year-old retired teacher. And the cause of this moment of panic was hidden in a daily habit that millions of us have, and that may be silently erasing our most precious memories. Helena had always been proud of her mind. As a history teacher, her life was woven with dates, names, and narratives. Memory wasn't just a tool, it was her identity. But around the age of 68, the fortress began to show cracks. They were small things, almost invisible. She would walk upstairs and, upon reaching her room, would stop and ask herself, "What did I come here to do?" She'd find her car keys in the refrigerator and laugh, telling her son, "I'm getting old." In her mind, the thought was a self-defense. "This is normal for my age. It happens to everyone." Her son, Marcos, noticed. "Mom, you already told me that story today." Helena would get irritated, defensive. "Of course not. You're the one with your head in the clouds." The truth is, denial was easier than facing the terrifying fear that was beginning to grow in her chest. The fear of disappearing, of becoming a burden. Her desire was simple, to remain the same Helena, the strong, independent woman everyone admired. The denial worked until the day it didn't anymore. It was a Thursday. Helena was at the supermarket, list in hand, pasta aisle. She stopped to grab a package of spaghetti, and when she turned around, the world changed. The colors of the packages became aggressive blurs. The sound of the shopping cart wheels became a deafening noise. The faces of the people became a formless mass. Panic swallowed her. She looked at the list in her hand and didn't recognize her own handwriting. She looked at the cart and didn't know what those products meant. An absolute void. She was no longer Helena. She was no one, lost in a strange place. Her heart raced, sweat dripped from her forehead. A thought echoed in the emptiness. Did I die? Am I in a nightmare? She stood paralyzed for what felt like an eternity until a young woman approached. "Ma'am, are you okay?" Helena couldn't answer. The words wouldn't come. The young woman, with immense kindness, led her to a bench, found her purse, and used her phone to call son, Marcos. The shame Helena felt when Marcos arrived, his face pale with worry, was the worst feeling of her life. The car ride home was silent. A heavy silence, full of fear and questions that neither of them dared to ask. At home, the sadness was overwhelming. Helena sat in her armchair and felt like an empty shell. The fear was no longer a possibility. It was a reality that was crushing her. It was then that her gaze fell upon a picture frame on the shelf. An old photo of her and her late husband, smiling on a beach. She remembered that day. The smell of the sea, the warmth of the sun, the sound of his laughter. Or did she? For a second of pure terror, the name of the beach escaped her. The image was there, but the caption in her mind was fading. It was in that moment. The pain of losing that precious memory was stronger than the fear. A flame of fury and determination ignited within her. She stood up, walked to the photo, held it tightly, and whispered into the silence of the room, "I refuse to forget you. I refuse to disappear." Helena's recovery didn't begin with a medicine, but with a decision, the decision to fight. Helena began an obsessive journey. She talked to doctors, read books, researched, and she discovered that her mind was not a passive victim, but a muscle that could be trained and nourished. She developed what she called the 5 pillars of a steel mind, the same ones that rescued her memory. Her first great discovery was in her diet, in what she called the clear mind diet. She discovered that her habit of eating bread, sweets, and processed foods daily created a fog in her brain, a silent inflammation. The first step was a cleanse. She replaced sugar with berries rich in antioxidants. Oily fish, like salmon, rich in omega-3, became her main ally, twice a week. Dark leafy greens in every meal. It was the fuel her starving brain needed. Next, she understood that a brain that isn't challenged atrophies, so she created her own memory workout. She turned her routine into a gym for the mind. She started doing crosswords every day. She began reading about subjects she knew nothing about. The biggest challenge, she would try to memorize the shopping list before going to the market. Small daily exercises that, when added up, rebuilt the bridges in her memory. She also learned about the importance of connection. After the incident, Helena had isolated herself, afraid and ashamed. But her research showed that loneliness is toxic to the brain. She made the difficult decision to reconnect. She went back to her old book club. She called a different friend every day. The social interaction, the conversations, the laughter, were like a powerful fertilizer for her neurons. Another pillar she rebuilt was the fuel of deep sleep. She always thought that 5 or 6 hours of sleep was enough. A big mistake. She discovered that it is during deep sleep that the brain does its cleanup, discarding toxins that accumulate during the day. She created a ritual: no screens an hour before bed, a completely dark room, and a lemon balm tea. The quality of her sleep was transformed, and the mental clarity in the morning was the proof. Finally, she embraced movement to irrigate the brain. She didn't become an athlete, but she committed to walking for 30 minutes, every single day. The walk increased blood flow to the brain, as if she were irrigating a garden. During the walk, she paid attention to details: the flowers, the birds, the faces of people. It was a moving meditation that oxygenated her body and mind. 6 months after that terrible day at the supermarket, Helena walked down the same aisle. She stopped, took a deep breath. She looked at the colors, listened to the sounds. But this time, there was no panic. There was peace. She picked up her package of spaghetti, looked at her mental list, and continued her shopping. She didn't just recover what she had lost. Today at 70, Helena is sharper, more present, and more alive than she was at 60. Her story is a warning, but above all, it's a promise. The promise that we don't have to be passive passengers in our own aging. We have the power to nourish and defend our minds. If Helena's journey has inspired you to start building your own mental fortress today, I invite you to join our community, right here in the comments. My mind is strong. Let's take on this challenge together. Don't forget to subscribe and share this video with someone who needs to hear this message.